You look in the mirror and see someone who's carried so many stories, who's lived so many moments, but who now feels a weight on their chest that they can't explain. If you're over 60, you might recognize this feeling that something has changed, that the peace of mind you once had seems to have been lost along the way. You know, there's something fascinating I've observed over the years, especially in people who have reached this golden age of life. There are thought patterns that creep in almost without us realizing it, like unwanted guests that settle into our minds and begin to consume our peace of mind from the inside out. Neuroscience reveals something remarkable about the brain after age 60. While our life experience gives us unique wisdom, our minds can also develop specific traps, thought patterns that trap us in cycles of anxiety and restlessness. And the most interesting thing is that these thoughts often seem so natural, so justified by our experience, that we don't even question whether they truly serve us. Today I want to share with you 3 specific types of thoughts that I've identified as true robbers of peace of mind in people over 60. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're real patterns I've observed transforming otherwise vibrant and wise people into anxious and worried versions of themselves. But here's the most important part, and I want you to pay special attention to it. If, as I talk about these patterns, you recognize yourself in any of them, if something resonates with your experience, do yourself a favor and write yes in the comments. Because recognizing it is the first step to regaining the serenity you deserve at this special stage in your life. These 3 thoughts I'm about to reveal aren't just casual observations. They're patterns that, when understood and worked through properly, can restore a peace of mind you might have thought you'd lost forever. I remember a situation that had a profound impact on me. I was talking to a charming couple, both in their 70s, who had arrived at my office in a state of tension that caught my attention. She held his hand tightly, as if clinging to a safe haven in the midst of an emotional storm. He told me that in recent months, he had developed a habit of waking up at 3 in the morning, not from physical pain or discomfort, but from a mental restlessness he couldn't explain. She added that she'd seen him walking around the house at night, as if he were looking for something he'd lost, but without knowing exactly what. What touched me most was when she said something that stuck with me. With teary eyes, she whispered that she felt as if they had lost the lightness they'd always had together. It was as if a heavy cloud had settled over their heads, turning simple conversations into worries and moments of rest into periods of mental turmoil. During our conversation, I began to realize something fascinating. It wasn't their circumstances that had changed drastically, nor was their health particularly compromised. What had happened was something much more subtle, but equally devastating. Certain thought patterns had taken hold in their minds, running like background programs that constantly consumed their mental energy. Neuroscience teaches us that the mature brain has a unique processing capacity, but it can also develop neural pathways that, instead of serving us, imprison us. This is exactly what was happening with that lovely couple. The transformation I witnessed in the following weeks was something that constantly reminds me of the power we have to reprogram our minds, even decades later. When they understood which thoughts were sabotaging their peace of mind and learned specific techniques to deal with them, it was like a heavy curtain being removed from a window, allowing natural light to once again illuminate their days. What strikes me about this story is not only the individual transformation each experienced, but how it affected their dynamic. They began to laugh together again over simple things, plan little adventures, and sleep peacefully side by side. It was as if they had regained not only their individual peace of mind, but also the serene complicity that characterizes couples who have aged together wisely. The first mindset to avoid is what I call near-future catastrophizing. I see this constantly in people over 60, and it's something that works very specifically at this stage of life. You know those moments when you're sitting peacefully, perhaps sipping your morning coffee, And suddenly, your mind starts building scenarios about what might happen in the coming months or years. I'm not talking about healthy planning, but rather that tendency to always imagine the worst-case scenario. The mature mind has an interesting characteristic. It possesses a vast library of experiences, which should be an advantage. However, when this archive of memories is used only to project future difficulties, it becomes a constant generator of anxiety. Let me give you a practical example I hear often. A 65-year-old person experiences a slight chest pain while walking. Instead of simply observing and calmly assessing the situation, the mind immediately creates a whole mental picture of heart problems, hospitalizations, dependence on others, loss of autonomy, and so on. Neuroscience reveals something fascinating about this pattern. When our minds get used to following these catastrophic thought paths, they literally reinforce these neural connections, making it easier and more automatic to return to these patterns in the future. The first technique I teach to break this cycle is what I call the present reality pause. When you notice your mind starting to construct these alarming future scenarios, stop immediately and ask yourself 3 specific questions. First, what is happening right now in this moment? Second, what concrete evidence do I have that this worry will materialize? Third, if this situation were to actually happen, what resources and experiences do I have to deal with it? These questions act as a natural break for the anxious mind. They bring it back from the imaginary future to the real present, where you have control and can make informed decisions. But there's a second layer to this technique that's specific to people with more life experience. After these 3 questions, consciously activate your library of overcoming challenges. Recall difficult situations you've faced and overcome throughout your life. This isn't nostalgia, it's applied neuroplasticity. When you consciously recall your past victories, your brain understands that you have the resources to deal with challenges. This creates a more balanced and confident mental state, replacing anticipatory anxiety with serenity based on real evidence of your adaptability. The second destructive thought is even more subtle and, therefore, more dangerous. It's what I call temporal comparison with the past self. This mental pattern acts as a specific trap for those who have accumulated decades of life. It works like this. Your mind constantly compares your current self to who you were at 30, 40, or 50. It compares your current energy with the energy you had decades ago. It compares your current physical flexibility with the agility you had when you were younger. It compares your current reasoning speed with the mental agility of earlier times. This constant comparison is devastating to your peace of mind because it sets an impossible standard. It's as if you're constantly competing with a version of yourself that no longer exists, and in this competition, you always lose. During a memorable consultation, a 72-year-old woman told me something that perfectly illustrates this pattern. She commented that she felt frustrated because it took her longer to learn new things on her phone, and that this made her feel like she was getting dumb. As we discussed it more deeply, I discovered that she was comparing her current learning curve to how quickly she learned things at age 35. Neuroscience reveals something extraordinary about the mature brain. While some types of processing may be slower, other capabilities become more refined. Wisdom, the ability to synthesize, the ability to see complex connections, and developed intuition are all characteristics that improve with age. The technique I've developed to break this pattern of temporal comparison is what I call natural evolution recognition. When you catch yourself comparing your current self to past self images, immediately shift the focus of the comparison. Instead of dwelling on what you've lost, consciously focus on what you've gained. Instead of focusing on the diminished physical energy, recognize the emotional serenity you've developed. Instead of lamenting the speed of your reasoning that has changed, celebrate the depth of insight you've gained. But there's a second part to this technique that's crucial. Actively create a mental list of your unique achievements from this stage of life. Things you can only do or feel now with the experience and maturity you possess. It might be the ability to appreciate a sunset with an intensity you never had before. It might be the ability to offer profound advice to your children or grandchildren. It might be the freedom to choose how to spend your time without the pressures of previous decades. When you train your mind to recognize these age-specific gains, you create a new neural pattern. Instead of always focusing on what has changed negatively, your mind automatically begins to notice the unique and valuable aspects of the current moment in your life. The third and most devastating mindset I observe is constantly questioning one's own worth. Mom, this is particularly common in people who have recently retired or who feel their social role has changed. It manifests itself through constant internal questions like, am I still useful? Do people still need me? Does my opinion still have value? Am I just taking up space? This type of questioning creates a chronic state of insecurity that erodes self-esteem and generates constant anxiety. Neuroscience reveals something profound about how our identity is formed throughout life. For decades, many people construct their self-image based on specific roles: professional, family, and social. When these roles naturally change with age, an identity crisis can occur, manifested through this constant questioning of one's own worth. I remember a 76-year-old man who came to me in a state of profound melancholy. He had been a successful businessman, always in high demand, always at the center of family decisions. After retiring, he felt that no one consulted him about anything anymore, that his opinions were no longer relevant, that he had become invisible. The most powerful technique for transforming this mindset is what I call actively redefining self-worth. Instead of basing your worth on what you do or the roles you play, you learn to recognize your intrinsic value as a human being who has accumulated unique experiences. It works like this. First, make a mental list of all the qualities you've developed throughout your life. Not external achievements, but internal characteristics. Patience, wisdom, the ability to forgive, the ability to listen, experience in overcoming difficulties. Second step, identify specific ways to share these qualities. This could be through conversations with younger people, volunteer activities, or simply being a calm and wise presence in the lives of those around you. Third, and perhaps most importantly, practice daily what I call existence affirmation. Every morning when you wake up, consciously remind yourself that your existence has value simply because you exist. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to produce anything specific. You don't need to play any role to have value. The fourth technique involves creating new purposes adapted to your current phase of life. Instead of lamenting old purposes that no longer make sense, consciously identify new meanings that are appropriate for who you are today. Finally, develop the habit of celebrating small daily contributions. Every smile you offer, every kind word you share, every moment of peace you convey, these are all valuable contributions to the world around you. If these techniques resonate with you, and if you're noticing patterns in your own mind that you'd like to transform, consider subscribing to this channel. I regularly share specific strategies for mature minds seeking serenity and mental well-being. There's a memory from my childhood that always comes to mind when I think about the wisdom that comes with age. My grandmother used to say that at 75, she had finally learned the difference between worrying and being busy. She said that spending decades worrying about things that never happened taught her that the mind can be our greatest ally or our worst enemy. She had developed a simple yet profound technique. Every time she felt her mind beginning to churn with anxious thoughts, she would stop and ask herself, "Can I do something concrete about this now?" If the answer was yes, she would act. If it was no, she would consciously direct her attention to something beautiful around her. I remember watching her do this during a difficult time for the family. Instead of ruminating on problems beyond her control, she deliberately chose to focus on the texture of her teacup, the sound of birds outside the window, the softness of her favorite blanket. What my grandmother had discovered intuitively, neuroscience now scientifically confirms. The mature brain has an extraordinary ability to consciously choose where to focus attention. This is a skill that develops with experience and may be our greatest tool for maintaining peace of mind. The present grounding technique she used works through deliberate engagement of the senses. When you feel your mind being hijacked by anxious thoughts, intentionally choose one of your 5 senses and focus fully on it for 2 full minutes. It could be the taste of the coffee you're drinking, paying attention to every nuance. It could be the texture of the fabric of your clothes against your skin. It could be the specific sounds of the environment around you. The important thing is that it's a total and deliberate focus. This technique works because it's impossible to simultaneously worry about the future and be completely present in the present moment. Anxiety always feeds on mental projections, never on immediate reality. If you recognize some of these patterns in your own experience, if these reflections are bringing clarity to aspects of your mind that you would like to understand better, share this content with someone who can also benefit from these perspectives. I want to share something I consider fundamental and rarely discussed when we talk about mental health after age 60. The importance of having a mental hygiene routine that's as consistent as our physical hygiene routine. Just as you brush your teeth daily to maintain oral health, your mind needs specific daily care to maintain clarity and serenity. This is especially important at this stage of life, when we have more time to think, but we don't always direct those thoughts constructively. Over the years, I've developed what I call a daily mental cleansing protocol, specifically for people over 60. These are 3 simple practices that, when performed consistently, create a natural barrier against the destructive thought patterns we discussed today. The first practice is what I call morning mental inventory. In the first 5 minutes after waking up, before even getting out of bed, consciously check in with the thoughts that naturally arise. Don't judge, just observe. If you notice your mind already starting the day with worries or anxieties, gently redirect it to 3 specific things for which you feel gratitude. The second practice happens throughout the day, and I call it mindfulness stops. Every 2 hours or so, stop for 30 seconds and ask yourself, where is my mind right now? If it's lost in worry or rumination, gently bring it back to the present with 3 deep, mindful breaths. The third practice is nighttime mental closure. Before bed, take a few minutes to consciously acknowledge 3 small victories of the day. These can be simple things like having a pleasant conversation, enjoying a meal, or experiencing a moment of peace. This trains your mind to focus on what went well, rather than fixating on what caused you worry. These practices may seem simple, but their effectiveness lies precisely in their simplicity. The mature mind responds better to consistent and gentle approaches than to complicated or forced techniques. I'd also like to emphasize something important about the process of mental change at this stage of life. Be patient with yourself. Thought patterns that have been established over decades don't change overnight. But the good news is that with consistency and kindness, they can definitely be transformed. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, has no expiration date. Your brain, at 60, 70, or 80 years old, still has the extraordinary ability to learn new, healthier patterns of functioning. If you have any personal experience with these thought patterns, have tried similar techniques, or have specific questions about how to apply these strategies in your life, please share them in the comments. Your experiences may be valuable not only to me, but to others going through similar journeys. We've reached the end of this conversation, but I'd like to leave you with a thought I consider essential. Every day after 60 is a unique opportunity to live with the serenity and wisdom that only this stage of life can offer. The 3 thought patterns we explored today, future catastrophizing, destructive temporal comparison, and self-worth questioning, are not inevitable characteristics of aging. They are simply mental habits that can be recognized, understood, and transformed. Your mind, with all the experience and wisdom it has accumulated, has extraordinary resources for creating an internal reality of peace and contentment. The techniques I've shared today are practical tools for accessing these natural resources that already exist within you. Remember that seeking mental serenity isn't a luxury or a whim. It's a fundamental necessity to fully experience this precious phase of life. You deserve a peaceful mind, thoughts that nourish you rather than drain you, and a deep sense of worth and purpose. If this content has brought valuable insights into your life, if you've recognized patterns you'd like to transform, or if you simply feel like you're not alone on this journey, I invite you to take some simple actions. First, subscribe to this channel to receive regular content specifically for mature minds seeking emotional well-being. Second, share this video with someone who could benefit from these reflections. Perhaps a friend, spouse, or family member also navigating the unique challenges of this stage of life. Third, leave a comment telling us which of these techniques resonated most with you, or briefly share your own experience with anxiety at this stage of life. Your insights may be deeply helpful to others watching. And finally, consider implementing at least one of the techniques we discussed today. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be every day at first. Just start. Your mind deserves this investment, and you deserve the peace that will come as a result. See you in the next content, where we will continue exploring practical strategies for a calm mind and a fulfilling life after 60.